By the end of this video, you'll discover the different layers of stress management for highly sensitive people, why some approaches only help temporarily, and how deeper work can begin to create more lasting change. In this video, you'll discover why so many highly sensitive people feel stuck in the same stress patterns even after trying to reduce stress. The different layers of stress management and what each one actually helps with, and how deeper inner work can begin to create more lasting peace and freedom. One thing I've noticed over the years working with highly sensitive people is that many people are genuinely trying to help themselves. They're resting more, listening to podcasts, taking breaks, meditating, learning about boundaries, trying to calm their nervous systems. And yet, even with all of that, they still find themselves getting pulled back into the same stress patterns over and over again. The same overwhelm, the same overthinking, the same emotional carrying, the same anxiety around relationships, and the same feeling of being on all the time. And I think one reason this happens is because not all stress management works at the same level. Some approaches help calm the symptoms of stress. Some help reduce how much stress builds up in the first place. Some help change your relationship to stress. Some go into deeper healing, and some begin loosening stress at its source. Today, I want to walk through what I see as the deeper layers of stress management for highly sensitive people. Not because you need to do all of them perfectly, but because understanding the layers can bring a lot of clarity and self-compassion. The first layer is reducing stress symptoms. This is where most people begin, and honestly, it's important. When your system is overwhelmed, or activated, or anxious, or emotionally flooded, it helps to have tools that bring your nervous system back down. Things like taking a walk, getting some space, having a quiet evening, moving your body, stretching, resting, journaling, talking things through with someone safe, taking a bath, spending time in nature, reducing stimulation, or simply sleeping. For highly sensitive people especially, sensory overload itself can become a huge source of stress. Too much noise, too much social input, too much emotional intensity, too much pressure without enough recovery time. And sometimes the most loving thing is simply helping your nervous system settle back down again, giving it a break. I think this is important to say because some people dismiss these tools that I've just mentioned as surface level, but they matter. If your system is highly activated, calming is not superficial. It is caring for yourself. The issue is only when we expect symptom relief alone to create deep, lasting freedom from stress. Because often the stress keeps coming back. Taking care of the symptoms is not enough. So this brings us to the second layer, which is changing your lifestyle. This layer asks, what about the structure of my life keeps creating stress over and over again? This is where we begin looking at things like your schedule, your workload, your environment, your pace, your relationships, your level of stimulation, and how much recovery time exists in your life. Many highly sensitive people are living in ways that constantly overload their systems, often without realizing it. Overscheduling themselves, never leaving space between things, being emotionally available all the time, working in chaotic environments, trying to keep up with a pace that doesn't actually fit their nervous system. Sometimes stress reduces not because you become better at handling stress, but because your life itself becomes less stressful. This is a huge distinction. This might look like working fewer hours, creating more alone time, simplifying your schedule, reducing commitments, changing careers, building in recovery space, or creating a calmer environment at home. Many highly sensitive people don't necessarily need to become tougher. They need lives that fit them better. The third layer is learning skills. And this is where we begin changing how we relate to stress and how we relate to other people and to ourselves. This includes things like learning boundaries, saying no, asking for what you want, communicating more honestly, not automatically taking responsibility for everyone emotionally, reducing perfectionism, and learning to notice overwhelm earlier. For example, two people can be in the same exact situation. One person feels responsible for everyone's emotions, overthinks everything, says yes to everything, and suppresses their own needs. The other person stays connected to themselves, communicates clearly, and allows others to have their own feelings. Same situation, but a very different stress level. A lot of highly sensitive people were never really taught these skills. They learn to adapt, to accommodate, to keep the peace, to monitor other people emotionally. So learning these skills can dramatically reduce daily stress. But even here, many people still notice, I understand boundaries intellectually, but something inside still reacts. And that's where we begin moving into deeper healing. The fourth layer is deeper healing, and this is where we start asking, why do these stress patterns feel so deeply wired in the first place? Because many stress patterns are not just current habits, they're connected to older emotional learning, fear of disappointing people, fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear or feeling responsible for other people emotionally, feeling unsafe being fully yourself, or feeling like your needs create problems. At this layer, we may begin exploring trauma healing, attachment work, somatic work, therapy, grief work, emotional processing, or healing old emotional patterns. Sometimes the nervous system isn't only reacting to the present moment, it's reacting to years of conditioning and protection and adaptation and emotional survival. And this layer can be deeply healing because people begin realizing, oh, this isn't just random. This is what's been going on. There's a reason my system has learned this. And that realization alone can soften a lot of the shame and can begin to change these patterns. And at the same time, even after deep healing work, many people still notice something interesting. Stress can still arise through the mind itself, through thought, through interpretation, through attachment, through resistance to reality. And that brings us to the deepest layer. The fifth layer is inner freedom. This is where stress management begins moving beyond changing circumstances or healing patterns into questioning the mind itself. At this layer, we begin asking, what if suffering is not only coming from life, but from the way the mind is interpreting life? This is where practices like meditation, mindfulness, the work of Byron Katie, self-inquiry, spiritual practice, presence, and letting go of attachment can become incredibly powerful. Because the mind is often creating stress through resistance and control, fear, future projection, identity, and attachment to how life should be. For example, they shouldn't feel that way. I can't handle this. I need them to understand me. This situation shouldn't be happening. I need certainty before I can relax. At this layer, we begin questioning these thoughts instead of automatically believing them. We begin loosening identification with those thoughts, not suppressing them, not pretending life is perfect, not bypassing emotions, but becoming less internally trapped by stressful thinking. And often, this creates a very different kind of peace. Not a peace that comes from controlling life perfectly, which is temporary, but a peace that comes from fighting reality less. So when it comes to stress management, I think one of the most important things to understand is that different tools help at different layers. And that means if stress keeps returning, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're failing. It may simply mean you've been working at one layer while deeper layers are still asking for attention. Sometimes you need rest. Sometimes you need lifestyle change. Sometimes you need skills. Sometimes you need healing. And sometimes you need to question the stressful thoughts creating suffering itself. All of these layers matter. And for highly sensitive people especially, understanding the difference between them can bring a lot more clarity, compassion, and direction to the process of working with stress. In this video, we looked at why so many highly sensitive people feel stuck in the same stress patterns even after trying to reduce stress. And that is because you may be working on one level, but not paying attention to another level that may be as important to pay attention to. And we looked at the different layers of stress management and how each one actually can help with different areas of stress. So one is just the symptom management, and another one is lifestyle changes. Another is learning skills. And another is deeper healing. And then the last and most fundamental is this deeper inner work where inner freedom can begin to be experienced. And finally, we looked at how deeper inner work can begin to create more lasting peace and freedom. And that is because when you're working on the level of identity and attachment and ego and deeper spiritual work, that is when the source of source of suffering becomes looser. So it's not about changing situations or improving your life, but about letting go and allowing that to be what it is. So the feeling I'm left with today is that there are different tools for approaching different layers of stress. And there are times when each one is needed. When you have a full toolbox, you can handle whatever shows up.